Happy Tuesday, everyone. Yesterday, it was 63 degrees in the afternoon. Yay. Spring is here, at least this week. Who knows what next week will bring? We do live in Ohio. I'm so glad that you're all here today. A thread of hope, walking the footsteps of Jesus in the Old Testament. Thank you for continuing to be a part of this. I appreciate it. And thank you for reaching out to me, those of you that are enjoying it. I am glad that this is blessing you because that's the whole point. The more that we're in the Word, the better we know God, the better we know Jesus, and the better we can be the examples that we need to be to fulfill His purpose in us. So for those of you that God's put it on your heart to watch it, I am just so happy that you have been blessed by it. So we're going to talk about the kings. Woot woot. Finally got to the kings. If you remember, when God was making his promises to Abraham, his covenant was that his nation would be blessed to be a blessing to many other nations. God promised Abraham descendants that were more numerous than the stars. He promised them that the nation that would come from his descendants would be set apart. It was chosen. The people would be chosen. And God promised him that that nation would bless other nations, as we have seen all of this come to be. One of the things that God did tell Abraham, wasn't part of the covenant, but he did tell him it would happen, was that he would have his descendants would be oppressed for 400 years in a foreign land, which we saw happen in Egypt. And he also told him that he would be the patriarch of kings. And we are about to get to that part of the journey. Now, God has set Israel apart. They are not like any other nation on earth. God chose these people. They are his. And he loves them. He set them apart. They don't need a king. But in typical Israel way of doing things, and I think you and I could probably say we see that in our own life, they wanted a king. They wanted a king because all their friends had kings and all their friend countries had kings. And so they wanted a king. And they wouldn't quit grumbling till they got one. And God knew they were going to do this, and he already had it set up, right? So Samuel, a high priest, a prophet, he was at one time a judge, and he has a personal relationship with God. And God tells him, it's time, we're going to start the process of having a king. And Samuel's upset about this. This is not what he wants. He feels like people are rejecting him, that they are not trusting in God. And he's right. They're not trusting in God, but they're not rejecting him. God tells them, this is not a rejection of you. This is a rejection of me, and they don't trust me. So we're going to do this their way. And they set it up. He tells Samuel what to tell them. Okay, if you have a king, you're going to pay taxes, you're going to go to war, you're going to do all of these things. Yours, it isn't all yours. It's part you have to give to the king now. And they don't care. They want a king. So they're going to get a king, right? So the first king is Saul. And the Spirit was on Saul when he started. But as is typical of many of us, I hope this is typical of more than just me, we tend to push our boundaries. We tend to go around the things we need to be obedient so we can maybe say we're obedient mostly. And Saul, and as you know, when we do this enough, it gets away from us. And it got away from Saul. He pushed enough that eventually it was very far away, the obedience and the boundaries. And he was not the king God wanted any longer. So a couple of things happen here. One, God tells Samuel he's going to go anoint the next king. And he tells him to go to the house of Jesse. And he goes. And Jesse brings all of his sons in. And God tells him, man looks at the outside. I look at the heart. He wanted to see courage and speaking boldly and the heart of a person, the humility. And so the oldest comes, nothing happens. He comes down until the youngest comes. And that's when God says to Samuel, this is the one I want anointed. David was a boy. He was a shepherd out in the field. They had to go get him. He wasn't even considered by his father for this. And so he anointed David with oil, and then he went back to Saul. So let's talk a little bit about David and how he was like Jesus. They both were born in Bethlehem. David was a shepherd of sheep, and he became king. Jesus was a shepherd of people, and he became king. He will become king. They were both called by God. They were both rejected by the people that loved them and had to face family and friends that they loved, betraying them, working against them. They both had that. David was a man after God's own heart. He was just different, and he was the standard that was set for all kings after him, that no one lived up to, not even Solomon. So David's covenant foreshadows Christ in chapter 16. He's been called, he's anointed in the presence of his brother, and then he goes about his service, and the Spirit of the Lord came in powerfully on David. As it came in on David, it left Saul, and Saul was filled with evil spirits. So ironically, through a series of circumstances, David became the one that could soothe him. His gentle spirit was able to do that. God promises David an eternal kingdom, that he is a throne and a seed from 2 Samuel 7:16, and that all are fulfilled in Christ. You find that fulfillment in Matthew 21:9 and 22:42. So the covenant that was given to David foreshadows Christ and the eternal kingdom that David is a part of through his lineage and through the man that he was. He then foreshadowed Jesus with that. Tomorrow we're going to break down some of the Psalms that had double meaning about David, who would say the Psalms, and how it also relates to Jesus. There's a lot. I either have to pick and choose a few, or it'll be 2 days. Right now I have it as 1 day, but we just don't know what tomorrow will bring. However the Spirit moves me, right? That's sort of true, actually. So, thank you for today, for listening in. Thank you to all of you who have been blessed by these videos and have shared that with me. I appreciate each and every one of you. These are driven by God, and he has put it on your heart to watch however many that you have, and they've blessed you. You've let me know that, and I am so thankful for that, because that's the point. They're for God's to use however he wants. So have a beautiful Tuesday. It's beautiful weather, and until tomorrow, enjoy your day.